stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. This first thing on the list here is the agenda approval. Is there any additions or modifications or subtractions?
I have nothing to add to the agenda today.
Great, thank you. Can I get a motion?
Make.
Thank you, Tom.
Second?
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Public input. We got a full house today. Anybody here to speak? Alrighty. Since there appears to be no public input, we'll close public input and move on to the consent agenda. There again, any additions or subtractions? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Shar.
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have county employee recognition. We have the county attorney's office. We have Michaela Walters. Intern began the temporary position on May 19th, 2022. Highway Department, we have Adam Gruss. Hope that was correct. Engineering technician 2. Adam began his full-time position on June 6th, 2022. We have Jack Johnson, engineering worker. Jack began his seasonal position on May 23rd of this year. And we have Isaac Knapp. Isaac is the engineer worker, began the seasonal position on May 31st, 2022. In the Sheriff's Department, we have Adam Gucci, dispatch jailer, began the full-time position on May 12th, 2022. David Patella, deputy sheriff, began the full-time position on May 22nd, 2023. Social services, Mike Edminster, social services supervisor 1, began the full-time position on May 31st, 2022. Solid waste, we have Wesley Motor, certified attendant, began the full-time position on May 16th, 2022. And also with solid waste, Linda Hensel, non-certified attendant, and is recognized for 2+ years of service from December 23rd of 2019 to June 4th of 2022. All right, thank you, everyone. And we'll move on to number 5, natural resource management.
Good morning. First item on the agenda is the transfer of a cabin lease. We received a request to transfer cabin lease number 8 from Dennis Dietrich to Mike Mead. Cabin has been inspected several times, and other than it's oversized, and I think that was grandfathered in. There's no issues out there except for the gate that is on the road. And I request that if you do approve the transfer, that you make it contingent upon that gate coming down.
Okay. Guess if nobody else has anything to say, I'd like to start off. I've looked at the cabin lease policy. If you go to our website, you go under your departments, go to natural resources, and then you can scroll down to document center. It's not an easy one to find. And you go down to department policies. It says cabin lease, recreational cabin lease policy. And in that policy, if it would come up for me, under section 6, which it's not coming up, it states that there is no, that cabin leases cannot be transferred. But I'm not getting it to pop up on my, oh, here we go. Word's got to open up. Okay. Let me find the exact wording here. Lease transfers. Recreational cabin leases are not transferable. Leases may be renewed to existing lessees up to 4 names with no new names added. Recreational cabin leases will be phased out as current leases are terminated either by the lessee or the leaseor.
I think that may be an old policy.
Okay. So that was my question, is if this is the current policy, well then, we're not following policy. And if it's not a current policy, then,
I will check to make sure that we have the current one on the webpage.
Because this was covered when we looked at the cabin leases.
Yep.
And it was, we were gonna make, I mean, we did make them transferable.
Yep.
and I didn't remember that. I thought that we were gonna look at phasing them out and how are we gonna do that? Because, you know, as we talked, what was this, 3 years ago, how it's a exclusive club and the majority of Hubbard County residents and others can't have the same option and.
We could look at making more.
We had a lot of discussion on a lot
We
of.
did have a lot of discussion,
Around
yep,
the horn, kinda.
without really coming up with anything.
I do recall a lot of discussion though on, and I don't know that if that's where we ended up. Chip may be correct, it may be different now, but that it would only be transferable to the names listed. So I'd like to see,
Oh, maybe
the
that could be.
current lease again,
Okay.
whatever's the most updated one. I don't know if there's any harm in tabling this
We
for
can
one
wait
meeting until we
until,
can
yep.
review the current lease.
Okay. So is that a motion?
Because if that's what the lease states, we need to follow the lease, or we need to amend the lease if we have a different opinion.
Right.
Yeah, because that's a really nice cabin there.
Yeah.
They'd have to tear it down, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or assign it to somebody who's been listed.
Mhm.
And how many leases do we have?
About 50.
Didn't we cap it? Didn't we talk about capping it?
It has been capped
Yeah.
for probably 20, 25 years.
Will you email the current policy out to
I will
each
do
board
that.
member, please? Because I'm looking it up and I don't have it in my documents here.
And if my recollection is correct, they have the right to name people to that list every time they renew the lease.
No, for sure.
There's a roundabout way to get somebody new onto the lease, but if you don't do it, you just can't arbitrarily one day assign it to anybody.
And I think.
I could be wrong, so I just want to
We'll have to
at
look.
it.
So motion to table till 6:21.
I'll make that.
Okay.
I'll second.
David and Tom, thank you, to table.
Possible if it's true, and we may need to table even longer, you know.
Yeah.
Consider what we do with it.
Because I thought this was the correct and current policy, because we were looking at ways of, I mean, back then, like I say, 3 years ago, we talked about setting
Well-
time limits as far as like 10 years or something like that, and I thought we were going this route so that eventually they would drop off one by one type of a situation, but.
The policy on the website is dated 2012.
Yeah.
And if you've had a subsequent conversation, we would
It's
probably
not
have to
updated.
find out.
Okay. So we'll table it for now. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Good catch.
Okay, motion carried. 5B,
All right, next item is the approval of a highway, or a off-highway vehicle contract, agreement with the state of Minnesota for the Schoolcraft, the Round River Drive East, and the Martineau off-highway motorcycle trails. This is a pass-through grant. We act as the local sponsor, and I act as the fiscal agent for the 3 grants.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda then is a application from the Two Inlets Snowmobile Trail System, the Forest Riders Snowmobile Club, for their fiscal year 2023 Snowmobile Trail Grant.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Shar. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And the final item is review of 3 quotes that we received for replacing the wind screens at our pickleball courts up at Heartland Park. We're looking at 9-foot windscreens, which would leave, this is pretty much most of the chain link fence out there, leaves a foot at the bottom just for, that way it makes it easier to, blow the leaves and the debris that's on there off of the courts. The low quote from National Sports Products out of Eldridge, Iowa, at $3,464.24. This does not include the windscreens for the 2 gates that are on there, and then the transom above the gate. Don't feel that this is a big deal. The screens that we had on there did not have those screens either, so, and at the $700 difference in price, we don't feel that that's a big enough deal, so. Recommendation is for the low quote from NSP.
I'll move to approve. Thank you, Tom. And I'll,
Paid for.
yeah. And I'll second, yeah, I noticed that it looked like through donations, it looks like.
This will be paid for through the donations that we received, and we have enough to cover the entire amount.
Okay, and I heard that that the pickleball courts are quite popular, so.
Typically, there's 20 to 30 people up there every morning, right now.
All righty, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
One other item I wanted to bring up is, if you recall, we had some storm damage on Memorial Day weekend. I had a couple of my guys go up in an airplane and kind of scout around to see what they could estimate on the amount of damage, and we're estimating somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 acres of timber damage between Park Rapids and Lake George area. We are working at trying to set some of these up, and they will be on our next timber auction. So we'll be bringing some of those appraisals to you in the, probably at the next meeting for approval. We're trying to get that stuff cleaned up as quick as possible. We're kind of focusing our entire effort on setting up those storm damaged areas so we can get that cleaned up as fast as possible.
When you make contracts with these loggers, do they use like 2 years, so you're gonna accelerate that part of it too?
Probably will shorten that time frame up just because of the, the amount of damage. Some of these are 100% on the ground, snapped off. So some of them may be as short as 6 months. Try and get them cleaned up before the winter sets in. Some of them are in lower areas, so they will have to be, allowed to work through the winter. So look at frozen ground operations on some of those, but try and get those cleaned up as quick as possible.
So I was out this weekend on the trails off of 32, if you go over that direction, towards Nevis. There was a large graveling project. Was that you guys that did that?
No.
Okay. And then, did you go out on each of the trails, or did people, as they just drove through, clear off trees? Because you could tell where the trees have been cut.
We did clean off some of the main trails, the Pine Lake, the Coon Lake, the Spider Lake trails, the Wabashish. Some of those major forest roads that we've got, we did go through and clear those off. Typically, you know, local residents and
Yeah,
people that
just-
are just out and about will clean some of those lesser ones off, so.
Yeah, lots of trees down.
Anything else? Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
talking-
All right, thank you.
I guess thinking about it in Dunkirk County, it's over towards
Solid waste.
there and Osage.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so the agenda item I have this morning is to review and approve a quote for a 53 by 64 storage building at the North Transfer Station. As part of our MPCA recycling grant that we received, we purchased auger compactor and for recycling at the North Station. And we're moving an additional one up there for household garbage. This fabric building that we're proposing would provide cover over that entire area and would be used to keep the product dry, recycling and garbage. Keeping waste and recycling materials dry will result in higher payloads and maximize transportation savings. We also had originally planned and budgeted to fabricate covers for each of these two compactor units, so we had money in our budget for that. And then also we were planning to build a smaller storage shed up there for storing electronic waste. And this fabric building would replace the need to have to fabricate covers and to provide a smaller storage building. One big thing with this structure is that it would be potentially be movable, or it would be movable. There would be cost involved with it if we ever had to move it. But this would allow it to fit in better to any long-term plans we have at the North Transfer Station if we look at replacing that building in the future, or you know, possibly looking at a regional facility if that would ever come to fruition up there. So this fabric building would be a little better to fit into long-range plans. This project has been quoted under the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract. And this wasn't originally in my budget for 2022. However, looking at, you know, what would work best on the site up there once we get them recycling compactors in, I think this would do the best job of creating a dry environment and also additional space for storing electronics and keeping our recycling dry and other equipment as well. So I do have funds in our offsetting in our budget. Again, had budgeted about $20,000 for a smaller storage shed, and would save about $5,000 for not fabricating covers. And then we're also delaying some office remodeling and other projects up there that we were planning for this year until next year. So funding is available that way. And then we'd be about an 8 to 10 week lead time with this company. So it's hopefully a project would be able to get done this fall. So, and the quote we received was from Greystone Construction out of Shakopee, Minnesota. And they're primarily the company that does these fabric buildings across the region. And they had furnished and installed a building for $75,800. We would be putting this on a block foundation. They're like Jersey barrier blocks and stackable blocks. And we'd be sourcing them locally. We have a source for them. And that'd be a minimal cost. I'm guessing around $2,500 for all the block we need for the project, so.
What's the life expectancy on the fabric?
The building itself has a 20-year warranty, and I think the fabric, I think was 20 years as well, but I think the fabric was 20 years as well. He said I asked the question, you know, how long you can expect, and it's typically between 20 and 30 years that you might need to look at replacing the fabric. Some, depending on the conditions, he said, have been in operation longer than that, but.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think it makes good dollars and cents to do that to protect the equipment. We have a lot of things going on with solid waste, possible changes coming in the future, and I would to make that motion,
Thank you, Dan.
and I would trust that Josh would find the money somewhere.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
All right, and that is all I had. Unless anyone has any questions, so.
Next Wednesday, we're in Boston,
Um,
15th.
yep, so.
Next Wednesday is also the AMC regional meeting, so people will be splitting
Yeah,
attention.
so that's why I kind of thought that, I'm hoping at least a commissioner or two would be going there and I could go to the,
Yeah, I'll go on Wednesday to mention.
Yeah, I guess I should point out in this regional grant study that we've been looking at, and you guys approved us to kind of go without grant funding. There's now, over the last couple weeks, there might be another funding opportunity from the PCA, so we're hopefully be kind of vetting that out over the next month, and so we might be able to have some cost savings there, so.
good,
But things are moving on that pretty fast too, so.
thanks,
The,
Josh.
I think the legislators were working on getting that score money used where it should be used. Is any update on that?
Well, nothing, the bills I don't think passed that was a part of. I think one of I can't remember if it's the Senate or the House had a little bit of additional funding for SCORE, but it would have been pretty much a drop in the bucket for overall pictures, so. I think it'll be a fight for another year, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Social services.
Commissioners, we have Brian's on guard duty for a couple of weeks. We've got Nick Johnson presenting on his
Morning.
behalf.
Brian said he's watching via YouTube streaming, so. First item on the agenda, 7A, the 2022 Special Needs-Based Care Social Services Managed Care Provider Procurement. There was some context provided with the agenda item. The Department of Human Services 5-year procurement schedule has required the submittal of proposals for healthcare organizations. Social services leaders in Minnesota reviewed the proposals and recommended that Hubbard County Commissioners adopt a resolution identifying Prime West Health as Hubbard County's managed care organization. Moving forward, down towards the bottom there were a total of 4 applicants for this group: Medica, Prime West, UCare, and United Health. All respondents met the minimum requirements. However, as a member of Prime West County-based purchasing counties, Prime West was the highest scoring for Hubbard County. The recommendation for the board is approve Prime West as a managed care provider for SNBC clients in Hubbard County.
Mr. Chair, because I'm on the Prime West Board, I will not vote on 7A or 7C.
Alrighty.
Same.
Dan, okay? Alrighty. Any questions?
Could I make a comment, though?
Your opinion would be valuable,
Okay.
since you're on the board.
So Prime West, as you know, we're a part owner of that, and it reinvests its profits into the communities. And also, it gives us a hands-on at Hubbard County instead of going through somebody down in the cities or whatever. I highly recommend this. And I believe Social Services is happy working with Prime West.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to approve then.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
Moving on to the second item, the contract for family-based counseling services. Again, there's some context provided. Stellar Human Services provides in-home family-based counseling services to individuals referred by Hubbard County Social Services. These services include individual and family counseling, or therapy, diagnostic assessment, parent education, and supportive services for clients and families to assist with prevention of out-of-home placement and reunification. The purchase will not exceed $65,000. The recommendation is approve and sign contract for Stellar Human Services, which operates in Beltrami and Hubbard counties for family-based in-home services.
Do you know what last year's contract price was?
Let me see, I took a few extra notes here to provide some context. A lot of this was confidential from some of us.
Not on the contract.
Same info.
Do we have the provider for 21 and the total amount spent on those services?
It's-
I do not have that information available in front of me.
As I understand it, the provider who we had for this service is no longer available. So this is the provider that is available to do this service and the provider that is working with Beltrami County. So there's some coordination of effort between us on this.
Who was the provider before? Excuse me.
I don't recall the name. I remember having that conversation with Brian.
So do either of you know, if you look on page 3, under section 2D, family-based counseling services intended to be intensive, time-limited service, therefore duration of service will not normally exceed 6 to 12 months per episode. Do you have any idea how many were served last year, even though it was a different company?
That context is not available to me. I would have to defer.
We,
Social workers that are supposed to be working, I mean, it's beyond their,
Nick and I talked about this. If there's questions that you have, we would be happy to note those and table this one till the 21st.
Yeah,
It's-
I'm
it's-
not opposed.
No,
just-
but I want to answer those questions, so
Yeah.
these are good questions. I'd rather have the answers before you approve it.
And one of my other questions would be, looking at the whole family approach, then is the counseling for the individual? Do they try to involve the family?
I can answer that.
You can answer that? Okay.
Or, I mean, I think I can answer that unless. It would be, I would assume, I mean, just looking at the whole dynamics, that it would be individual and family. I mean, that's the whole idea, is more intensive, and in-home. My question is, don't we have 2 workers already that are supposed to be doing some of this type of work, although they're probably not mental health practitioners? That's my other question. I mean, we need a service provider, whether it be Stellar, North Holmes, I mean, we need it.
What do you think that's who did it before, North Holmes?
No,
Okay.
no, they should, but no.
So, Mr. Chair, could we move to table and then get our questions answered and then?
Sure.
Unless this is a time,
Yeah, is this time?
It's not
sensitive?
time bound. We can do this one in 2 weeks and be just fine.
okay.
I have one more question.
Okay.
In the next section after what Shar mentioned, it says, the agency determines preliminary and final eligibility requirements. What are some of those eligibility requirements? I'm not very familiar with the program.
Well,
We'll
then
we'll
that
bring a
brings up
description.
Another question.
We'll bring a description of that as well.
Okay, so then, thinking about that, then does the caseworker at Hubbard County have access to what went on here? So as they're working with the individual or the family, can they build off of what's happened for success?
Are you getting all those questions, Nick? Because I'm
Yep.
counting on you to write them down.
Yep, no, if I got them. Brian's he's providing a little bit of context here too, so I mean, if I have an answer that I can address immediately, but he said he would gather all that information
Yep.
for us, and we would provide
Okay.
that, and we can table it till the 21st.
Okay,
Get it
great, thank you.
readdressed. Yep, you
Is
bet.
that a motion?
Yes, I make the motion to table, please.
Second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion on that one? Those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is tabled. Now on to 7C.
All right, the last item that I have, this, from my understanding, is a renewal. This is 2022 Families and Children's Social Service Managed Care Provider Procurement. Minnesota Department of Human Services, the 5-year procurement schedule has required the submittal of proposal for healthcare organizations. So similar to the first agenda item, the social services leaders in Minnesota reviewed the proposals and recommended that Hubbard County commissioners adopt the resolution identifying Prime West Health, again, as Hubbard County's managed care organization for families and children. There were a total of 5 applicants in this group: Blue Plus, Medica, Prime West, UCare, and United Healthcare. All respondents met the requirements. However, as a member of Prime West county-based purchasing, Prime West was the highest scoring for Hubbard County. Recommendation is to approve Prime West as the managed care provider for families and children in Hubbard County.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a comment at that last Prime West meeting last Thursday. We found out that some counties were dictated by the state to offer 3 plans. All that does is increase county cost. It's not that each plan offers something different. It's only to process, and so even though I'm not gonna vote on this, I'm highly in support of this resolution. Yeah, I saw that.
Is there any further discussion? Any questions? I'll make a motion to approve.
We're only doing single care, so.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Get the questions, get the answers for our questions on 7B, and we'll be all set.
Yes, sir. And then just as an added note, I'm assuming this is the norm for the process, but the resolutions in items 1 and 3, Denise, to forward those on after signature to Brian. You can take care of the rest. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
One question for both of you gentlemen. Mike, hi, how are you? Do we have any LADCs on staff at Hubbard County?
We have one.
We do have one? Are we gonna be needing a second one?
That I don't know at this point.
Based, and the reason why I said it is based on the July 1st requirement?
Yeah, I was made aware of that last week, like day 2. So we're looking at it. I met with Lauren,
That's who does it now?
yeah, and we met again yesterday. We're gonna review some state statutes that are on there, and then all the SUP reform hopefully this week and next, and have some kind of answer for Brian. Yeah, we're aware that there's a,
That's big, you know. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that.
yes,
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Human Resources.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Human Resources, first item is appointment of Assistant Veteran Services Officer. The Assistant Veteran Services Officer position became vacant May 6th, 2022. We went through the recruitment and selection process, and that has been completed. According to statute 197.60, the Assistant Veteran Services Officer position is also a requirement to be appointed by the board. We have, the selection has been at candidate Aaron Majors. So our request today is to approve appointment of Aaron Majors, Assistant Veteran Service Officer pursuant to Minnesota Statute 197.60 as amended, and that would be effective June 8th, tomorrow, for him to be able to start.
Did Jerry tell you about?
Well, I think I know Aaron. Is he Marv Vandenberg's former, well, Marv's daughter died and he was married to her. Is that the same one? I guess, I don't know if you can answer that.
That would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
something I would bring to the
Yeah,
table.
yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. I'm just curious.
Is that the only applicant?
No, there were some other applicants as well, too. I think they probably had an interview panel that they interviewed 3 or 4 candidates.
The only context I would provide is having had a conversation with Jerry,
Yeah.
that Aaron has been a volunteer with the group and an active member of the local group, and he suggests he will be a very good replacement for that position.
Fine with
If I
us.
got the right guy, I believe he'd be very good, yes.
Okay.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. The second item we have before you that was presented is the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, Drug and Alcohol Program Policy for Hubbard County Heartland Express employees. We have updated this policy per requirements from the DOT fiscal grant program. We work with Annette Mayer. She's a federal program assistant. She completes the audits of the FTA drug and alcohol program. And this is the model DOT policy that is submitted out to entities that receive the grants through the DOT to operate their FTA. So we have incorporated it then into our personnel policy. We have the standard policy applicable to all employees. We have Section B, which is the drug and alcohol policy that is related to our federal motor carrier employees, and now we're incorporating this Appendix C into the personnel policy that addresses the drug and alcohol for the Federal Transit Administration. So we're here today to request approval of the policy.
It's much needed and overdue by years. So I would make that motion.
Thank you, Dan. And I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, I didn't see the second.
That was me.
Oh,
That is all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. On to the administrator.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two items and then a few of them that are embedded in a administrator's report. The first one is, I believe, the balance of the paperwork cleaning up clear title for the county to the Heritage Living Center. And the request is to, one of the papers filed in December 31st was an assignment of mortgage from MMCDC back to Taine Investment 65, which was an entity created to hold and carry these, again, to carry the new market tax credits. So the list today is to approve the recording of the satisfaction of the mortgage of the $15 million that was put against there. The first five approximately was the new market tax credits. The $10 million balance was the general obligation bonds that the county took out. So in the motion are two elements. One, to record the satisfaction of mortgage, and thereby the county assuming the responsibility for the balance of the general obligation bonds. The county does not need a mortgage to hold against general obligation bonds because we issued those general obligation bonds on the balance of the county's ability to levy to make those payments. And as I said, I think this is the last piece. Zach Cronin from Reslaw said after this is filed that his plan would be to run another title opinion just to verify that it's clear. He said we should be good, and I've already ran it past the recorder's office, so they said this should go through and clean that mark off the title.
Okay.
The only other element of this is I've had Commissioner De La Hunt sign this because he signed as the representative for Taine Investments on all of the other items, when they were all happened while he was board chair. So I would have him sign as county commissioner for Hubbard County on behalf of Taine Investments.
Okay.
Seems to be cleaner.
Is that paperwork in the file right here?
It was in a separate file we already
Okay.
got to him, so it's not in that, it's not in your signature file, it was in a separate one,
Thank you.
for clarity's sake.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Shar. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the second item, we talked about at general government, we talked about financial planning. We talked about a couple of specific things coming up this year relative to the possible sale of the Heritage Center and the retirement of that debt, helping the county out with capital planning, planning for the possibility of additional tax capacity and doing some modeling for us. And so at the General Government Committee, we put forward an RFP to engage a financial planner for the next 5-year period for Hubbard County. And that would go out tomorrow with a deadline of June 30th. That would mean that on July 5th, we would very likely have, if we have a finalist or semifinalist, we would very likely have some video interviews or some in-person interviews with one of 5 firms that we're planning on sending this out to. PFM is our current financial advisor and has done the bonding work for us. There's been very little advisement as far as investment, as far as debt planning, as far as, you know, capacity, all of those things. That's what we want to tie into one package. Ellers Financial, Baker Tilly, Northland Financial Services, and Springstead would be the 5 that we would send this directly to after this meeting if the board approves.
I'm just curious with PFM, is it because we have not asked for that service?
It's because we have not asked for that service. It's also, I'm not entirely sure they have the capacity to provide the full breadth. If I were to look at that list of 5, the 3 that I have firsthand knowledge of that have the capacity to deliver all those services would be Baker Tilly, Springstead, and Ellers. We're including Northland and PFM because PFM we have a relationship with already. And Northland is, a lot of people use them for debt issuance, so.
Thank you.
It's a short turnaround time, but people who are interested will have people dedicated to be able to turn that around in a couple of weeks. There's a couple of, you know, major pieces on this. There's no investment cost here at all. What part of the proposal is, they would tell us what the hourly rates are for the different types of services they provide. And as we contract for a piece here and there, we would know the cost as we were moving forward. There is no cost to enter into an engagement with a company like this. You pay as you go, based on the rates that they would provide. So that'd be one of the elements we would use relative to that. Scope of services, financial management, financial planning and debt management, debt issuance. That's all really technical. Economic development. Again, the impetus for this conversation came up at a Heartland Lakes Development Commission meeting where we would develop some capacity. One element of this tool is, of course, that the city of Park Rapids is currently working with Ellers. The school is currently working with Ellers. There's some amount of, when we think about budgeting and planning related to additional tax capacity, having one provider would be good. Special services are in here. And I added 2 items from a boilerplate one. This item 4B, assists with modeling and strategy regarding significant changes to county tax capacity. 1 is additional tax capacity related to Enbridge. 2 is to add the element of complication of the recent market adjustments that we've had relative to residential housing and be able to do some modeling related to that. And then C is assist county with planning and debt management related to the possible sale. So I kind of took those 2 things that are very particular to us and kind of snuck them right into a boilerplate, and that will very likely be a key way of seeing who read this thoroughly and who's giving us a boilerplate response. So technical proposal would identify the things, fee schedule will be supplied. So anyway, we could terminate for cause. Is this scheduled for 5 years? Because when you do a capital plan or a financial plan, you want to have it modeled out there and you want some consistency and stability. But if it's not working out, you can change course throughout.
When they give their presentation, is that when they'll have their fees, present their fees?
We'd have the fees prior. We would have the
Oh, prior.
fees, we'd have the fees submitted by June 30th before we would review those proposals and bring the top 1 or 2 to the board for an interview.
And if there's any fees that start accumulating this year, do you have a budget in mind for where it would come from?
We do have some amount of money available this year. I think I've got some technical fees in my department. We've also got some capital planning fees related to that project that we have not allocated yet. I keep going to that bucket, but we haven't actually spent any of them. So, yes, we would have some related to the planning for additional tax capacity. That's the work we would want to do this year. The work related to the bonding is stuff we would typically have anyway related to that, so that would be assigned against the margins related from a sale. So I think we could find ways to accommodate it.
Yeah, I think we don't want to draw too much out of that bucket because I know it's going to be delayed now to 2023, but we don't want to go any further than that.
I don't want to draw any money out of that bucket either. Just a reminder, the structural engineer is visiting today, and after his report is complete, they'll be able to update the specs, and we will probably be doing a bid this fall for next spring construction. So we will know before we approve a final budget for next year, how much is left in that money that we allocated to that capital asset, and we know what we have for grant funding. So that project will be fully funded before we release any of those planned funds.
Mr. Chair, and these, as Jeff said, these costs would be incurred just as a function of doing the items we already have coming up, capital planning, the economic development piece, the Enbridge piece, and the heritage piece. Those are things you're gonna do, and these expenses, you're gonna need that expertise
We are one wrong
to
decision.
do these
Oh,
things.
man. Yeah.
So it'll be nice to have this laid to rest and know who we're working with.
Is that your motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, David.
I'll second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And then some items from, for an administrator update. I handed out a worksheet, or not a worksheet, but a letter to each of you, and this is related to the structure of the County Board of Appeals. At our last meeting, we decided to continue the meeting onto June 14, 15, and 16, beginning at 5 o'clock. The end date for each evening would be relative to your discretion. You know, when have we reached a point where we're no longer effective? You know, after 3, 4, 12 hours, whatever that number is for you. So this is intended to be a handout for everybody attending the County Board of Appeals. Talks about the purpose of the meeting, the schedule of the meeting. Appellants will only need to attend one of these meetings, and anybody who submitted an appeal in writing doesn't need to attend for their appeal to be considered. Property owners will be notified in writing of their determination. A couple of assumptions that I've made in here are a 10-minute limit on the appeals, that the board would hold their decision-making until all appeals have been heard, and that property owners will be notified in writing. All of this work is paraphrased from the Board of Appeal and Equalization Handbook related to the meeting format or the board responsibilities. So I think you each all already have this or have had access to this or had it last time you refreshed your training. If you want to see that, I can share copies with that. It's really, I've been referring to this for 3 months this year. The appeals must be based on facts. The property owner must present supporting evidence to convince the board the current year valuation or classification is incorrect. The property owner should describe the property, how the property is used, as well as the current conditions. Again, the reminder, we've been saying property owners should keep in mind that taxes are not the issue. The board should not consider arguments based on the ability of the taxpayer to pay, services received for taxes. This is about the value of the property and not how much taxes are on the property. And I know it's really hard to have that conversation without transitioning to the county, the conversation about taxes, but that's what it is. So our plan is to have sign-up sheets for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday available outside the room. We're gonna set the room with all chairs. We would kind of put a list on there, you know, after number 15 on the first day, we kind of draw a line and say, this is what we think we have capacity for this night, and we'll do the same for the subsequent night. So if somebody shows up on Monday, they sign in as they arrive, the board chair would call them in the order that they signed up on every day, right? And then we would take however many that we have. Certain people can show up without having signed up initially. You will get a book with the appeal and the recommendation, the staff recommendation for each of the appeals that we have. At this point, it's over 100. You'll get that by the end of the week with an index, hopefully, so we can get quickly to the page that the appeal is on that you're looking for. Because as people are signing up, they're not signing up alphabetically, they're not signing up in order of their parcel ID numbers. So we're gonna have to be able to transition quickly and move to that. So that is our plan. We also put a notice of these proposed structural changes will be in both papers on Saturday. It's on the county website, and we are planning on getting a PSA out on the local radio station so that people know that they can attend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday and be heard the same on any given day. They don't all have to come on Monday. I think we're doing the best we can with the volume that we have. You've already made the decision that we're gonna allocate 4 evenings to this, so we're trying to split the workload up across those 4 evenings. There just isn't time to reach out to everybody. We don't have email addresses for everybody. That's one of the things we don't have. We don't have telephone numbers for everybody, and we don't have time to reach out to people by mail at this point in time. So that's really just an update. Any questions about what to expect relative to that?
I guess the only question I have is if at the end of Thursday, we haven't heard everybody.
Then you, as the board, will have to make a determination when you're gonna continue to hear the balance of the appeals.
Okay.
I would suggest that we probably, wherever we get done hearing appeals, you would just continue to June 21st, and as part of the regular board meeting, that you would hear the staff recommendations and make your determinations on the appeals, that we just make that part of the 21st meeting. That will get us, we have 10 days once we start to complete. 10 days would be the 22nd of June. So that's well within the time frame to get this done. That would make the 21st a long meeting. If nothing else, making, seconding, and voting 100 times will take time.
Yes, it will.
So we might want to just bear in mind, we might be working at the 17th or the 18th. We look at our schedules.
That's what I was thinking.
I think each of you should look at your schedule. I think we'll have some idea. I don't think most appeals are gonna take 10 minutes. I think if they have a valid appeal with documentation, 10 minutes is kind of the minimum amount of time to give them. I also think a lot of people will look at the backlog and walk away from it. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. I think people will say, hear the same thing over and over. That's what I was gonna say. We're not gonna give them, one of the things that's really important is when they make their appeal, you will call them, they will have their time, and you will thank them, and you will call the next. So they really aren't gonna get any feedback from you, and that's probably the only way to get through them all fairly, is to hear the appeals, to thank them for the appeal, and to move on to the next one. The deliberation, the discussion about, what, I think a good conversation and deliberation about the types of appeals made after they've all been heard before you move into the motion setting would be useful. But I don't think engaging that in a conversation and a community dialogue would make this take 2 weeks straight.
So keep it to specific questions on each
If,
individual appeal.
yes, if in each individual appeal, if you have a specific question about the condition of a property or a statement made by a taxpayer, the assessment staff will be here to answer that. They will have their tablets, they will have the ability to pull up each parcel, they will be able to answer specific questions, and that's very important. So if you have those during the appeal, do that during the appeal. But that's one of the major assumptions I'm making, is that we would not make decisions on each appeal item by item by item, that we would do it at the end. And I think that's really important, because the challenge is, if you made decisions on the appeals as they came up, you wouldn't know which one is more deserving. And the most significant likelihood is that you would exceed your 1% authority to make appeals, and then they would be all void. So I really think you need to hear them all before you could do the balance of them. So those are the 3 assumptions I made when I drafted this letter. If those are appropriate, then we'll proceed as planned. if you want to have a conversation or make a different determination on any of those three decisions, we could do that and accommodate them.
I think it makes sense.
Sounds like a good plan. See how it works.
We'll have a good plan. The implementation is going to be completely different.
But you're a good gatekeeper.
That's my only role that evening. I've reminded everybody on the staff that I'm the only one that doesn't have to be here, but I'm gonna be here to help the thing go smoothly.
Every night?
I will be here until it's done.
Okay.
I didn't go to the road meeting last night because I knew that Jed was perfectly capable of handling that himself.
But we missed you.
I appreciate being missed.
Okay,
So the second item is that relative to our advertisement in the paper about the making of the heritage available for sale, we received no proposals. So it is now in the hands of, I signed off on the brokerage agreement, Jonathan reviewed it, signed off on the brokerage agreement, and it is in their hands. They were here yesterday. He hired a local photographer to take local photos of the facility and get to him, so I know he's hard at work, fast at work on this. I don't know what we're gonna see, or how quickly we're gonna see it. The last item I would note is, as Nick and Mike were talking about staffing and the staffing requests, when I look at the budget calendar, the end of this week is the deadline for department heads to make staff requests relative to the 2023 budget, so we're ticking through that process. We'll do those, and then we'll provide some updates from HR back to finance to get those into the preliminary budgets, and then the departments will work on the balance of their preliminary budgets to get it to you by July. That's typical. That's normal this year. This assessment process is not normal this year, but the budgeting schedule is. So that would be all I would have for an update unless there are questions.
One thing you're probably gonna wanna do a little homework on, which we've done already then, is, being that the Ecumen contract ends at the end of September, I don't see us being able to finish anything up, even if we did get, qualified offers, probably prior to the end of the year.
Yeah.
So we'll look at maybe extending that through the end of the year at least.
I think we have to have,
6
I
months.
think we have to have those conversations. I'll talk through, Zach Cronin from Reslaw added a couple of specific items to the brokerage agreement, and one of them was related to the transition, and that the broker is gonna play a role in the transition if there is any. So I'll talk to them about
Yep.
what they recommend and the timing, and I'll get an idea. I think if there is gonna be an interested party, it will be identified and in the next 3 months, and I think you're exactly right that the closing and the transition would happen after the end of that period. I forget that it's already June.
alrighty, thank you. Now we're on to committee reports. Dan, did you wanna?
Mr. Chair, before we do that, did you have further information you wanted to give us? Okay, all right.
Nick is gonna be attending the personnel committee
Oh.
for Brian afterwards, so
Oh,
he's.
that's why, okay. All right, we didn't want to make you sit through this if you had something to give the board. Okay.
It's refreshing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Department heads scurrying here just at the.
Okay, so I have a question, since we're starting with myself. On the planning commission, did you attend that, or who attended that this last month?
Oh, they didn't have one this last month.
Well, the one before that, what,
Yeah.
did it involve like Starlight Bay or whatever the?
That one's coming up. It'll be this next month. Or I mean, this month, actually, this next, whatever, last Monday of the month. Starlight Bay will be on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so they didn't go, they started the process with
Oh,
that?
yeah, it's on the agenda for the plan commission for the month of June.
Okay.
So they'll
Gotcha.
probably reach us in July, I would guess. Or
Okay.
maybe even first of, beginning of October, August.
And then, the other question is on transit, I get a few questions too. On transit or busing services, do we still have the same supervisor, or do we have retirement there?
We've got a new supervisor, right?
You're the transit guy? Oh, great. Okay, great. All right. No, and I appreciate that because I was in some dialogue yesterday and somebody had put that out there and it's like, well, all right. So in a conversation I had with Shar last night too, regarding transit, do you find that possibly there be a need to expand services as far as mileage outside of what we currently hold?
Absolutely.
Great.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
so
we
you're gonna
were-
be working on that, aren't you?
Dan and I were just talking about the high cost of vehicle driving right now.
I've been to a few conferences and, trading information with folks at MnDOT and other transit providers across the state of Minnesota. I've had a conversation with Brian as my leader and Jeff, about potentially thinking outside the box, considering what our fleet looks like. Is it necessary to have a 16-passenger, van? Sure. So there's been conversations, ideas on what that, could we do a smaller kind of commercial van for running? We do the Bemidji trip every other week. I know that pre-COVID, there was some activity type trips that were scheduled for the community, Itasca, things of that nature. I know that there was a run to Nevis and LaPorte, none of which are currently happening, so there is a need. I field many phone calls from the public asking if the service is available. So working within the confines of, what MnDOT, within our contract, but taking a look at that and looking for opportunities to expand.
So Nick, when you get the phone calls, are there common areas? Is it Bemidji, Fargo? What are people asking for?
Nevis is very popular. Nevis, LaPorte, even Lake George. I do think that if we've had an extended network, I guess in my thought process, I thought we could get something that was a little easier on gas mileage that doesn't necessarily have to passenger as many, people, and kind of have an outer band or an outer loop where we could get those folks that are a little more rural into town, for med appointments and things of that nature. Part of this, thought-provoking process is it's really hard to get volunteer drivers right now. There's challenges with gas prices and things like that going up. It's not exactly lucrative, so it truly is a volunteer program. They're volunteering their time, and financially they're volunteering, some of their own means in order to help out these folks. So, and our fleet, I don't know if you can imagine, we're getting a replacement bus isn't entirely easy at this point. They're backed up. We're talking, 2021 bus coming in 2023. And it's happening all over. So again, considering what else we can put in our fleet to help with some of those challenges.
But you're talking about two different things. Heartland Express versus volunteer drivers.
Yep.
I mean, they're two different animals, but I would imagine, I don't know how your protocol over there, but I would imagine that they're under one.
But Dan, I got a question about that. So even though he's talking about two different things,
Yep.
you're talking about taking what the volunteer drivers used to do and putting it under the fleet in a smaller vehicle, if I understand you?
Right, so if we had an expanded network, basically our volunteer drivers are covering our expanded network because of the radius we have with the transit. Our busing system, if we could extend beyond those confines, we would then be able to get those folks that are in need of a medical ride, let's say, but they're 20 miles out of town. Our public transit program doesn't operate in a way that we can help that person get to where they need to go. If we had an extended network, maybe not a 20-mile round trip, but it would alleviate some of those things.
Yeah, because currently, isn't it a 5-mile radius around Park Rapids, 2-mile radius? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I've had, of course, calls up in my district on the north end. A lot of people, elderly people especially, looking for some kind of ride to a medical appointment or or something like that. And I know that those folks and I have reached out to Brian, and he's been able to help. And that's kind of what I've thought about too, is I know a lot of them want to go to Bemidji, and I know that there's services available in Bemidji, and I didn't know if there was some way we could partner with them, with the Bemidji Social Services or whoever. Because I know, like I say, one of the couple are right there in Farden Township. Now it's 45, 50 miles away from Park Rapids.
Right.
To help out one couple. But I don't know if there's others in the area, because not everybody, of course, reaches out to me for help. And I've always thought about like Ubers and stuff like that. Are those available, or?
So we don't have a huge network for that, you know, in Park Rapids, even Bemidji, you know, Beltrami, Hubbard, Cass. But with that being said, that is an idea or a philosophy that we can potentially embrace. You know, put a smaller runner vehicle, have a driver that's able to make those types of kind of case-by-case runs, in addition to having our buses circling the city.
Yeah, so I'll just throw this out there. If, you know, the possibility of having your volunteer driver, say there is somebody up on the north end by Ted where you could put a remote vehicle, such as, you know, Ford van, transit van, 9-passenger, you could leave it set up there, and you could work with the constituents that need to go to Sanford or Bemidji. I mean, it's pretty easy logistically to do that. So that's that. And then my other question to you, since I didn't know you were going to be here, but this is great. Are you going to attend the MAPT Train the Trainer, which is the end of July?
I have not considered that as of yet, but I can absolutely.
You may want to look at that, the MAPT, and possibly go to that, because there are some,
What is that then?
the Minnesota Association of Pupil Transportation, having a conference down in the cities, 4 days, you can pick and choose. There's a lot of topics there, like we finally got this policy on the drug and alcohol. But I don't know if you're certified in some of those areas with your staffing, but it's a great training opportunity. It doesn't cost that much money to attend. It's down in Brooklyn Center. Marietta, if you can get in, would be a good choice. But just a lot of valuable information regarding transportation. So it's not just school buses, it's, you know, hopefully it'll be Hubbard County's, you know, Heartland Express and things of that nature, but it's a good resource for you. It'll help you get up and running on a few topics. So that's all I had for him. That's all I had for him, but I have some more. So then the LADC, you're gonna let us know, and then Prime West email doesn't have anything to do with us?
No, it
Okay,
does not.
Scratch that. So we had our Northwest Juvenile Training Center eval. It's being shipped out to the judges. Mindy and I will attend and answer any questions that the judges have for Northwest Juvenile Training Center, and how we can edify and/or continually to build this worthwhile program that we have out there for our clients or underage or juvenile clients. We also had last night a meeting with Park Rapids School Board regarding ACEs, and that I believe is August 30th from 8:30 to 3:30. And we're encouraging all school boards within the district, administration, staff to attend to better serve the needs of our youth in our community and try to get a handle on these changing and challenging times. And then the last, just a comment regarding driver's license bureau downstairs. Had a complaint that this individual had came in during its noon break time, and we're still closed from, I believe it's noon to 1. Looking at, hopefully we can make this more customer service orientated, and we can look into that, maybe stagger the employees so we can be open from 8 to 4:30. Because I know that if I was working in the community and only had that little bit of time, it would be beneficial. And that's all I have.
Okay. And I seem to recall that maybe a year ago or so that we had discussion with Kay about staffing at noon hour for the license bureau, and I don't recall what was determined there, so I was gonna talk to Kay about that and see if he remembers.
That would be a good idea. I had the opportunity to go down there last week with my granddaughter to apply for a licensure or duplicate, and great staff, great service. Appreciate them down there.
It's certainly a thought for consideration. It would be a really challenge right now because they're short 2 people.
I understand that,
So
but we could still stagger maybe if we ever get up to
I don't know how we're gonna stagger the 1 people down there this week, but
well, there was, I seen about 4 of them, Kay and Sandy and a couple others down there, but maybe they just had to come at the same time.
And coworker commented to me that Beltrami County's got the same issue of not being available during the lunch hour. That I haven't explored, but, because I was curious what, like you say, if a lot of people, they work 8 to 5 and they get their lunch hour to do their errands, and if we can't be available, but if we can't find people to work, that,
it's also challenging because the person operating that service needs to be trained to operate that service and operate that system, and it becomes a resource allocation issue. Oftentimes, people have 1 person trained and a backup, and if that's what you want us to do, then we'll put that in the budget to make sure we can do that for next year. But it's a challenging thing to do because not anybody that's standing downstairs can step in and do license administration.
I think we should put it in the budget and look into that.
Some of those people are duplicate election workers too, aren't they?
We're supposed to be.
Election, all kinds of items, yeah.
That even makes it more problematic with an election year.
It's gonna be a challenging year, but we hear that. Ted makes a very valid point. Hubbard County is not the only one that's closed over the lunch hour for license services. We can staff to that level if that's your desire.
We want to be better.
thank you. Shar?
Okay, Tom, I'm gonna let you take my hubby, and Dave, you can take Heritage, if that's all right. Then I'll do Prime West. So we met last Tuesday. We are now at 52,000 members. Bear in mind that since pre-COVID, nobody has been taken off the tax rolls. So we're like maybe 5,000 people over, whatever. $602 per member per month in cost, and we are at 86.1% healthcare expenses to budget. That's a really good ratio. Currently, for April, we had $2.4 million in net profit, and for the year, we have 9.6, which is up 211% from our budget. Reinsurance rate, which is if I have several claims, once prior, if it reached 400,000, then the reinsurance company would take it over. They've raised that to 450,000 because due to the rising costs in medical, they were finding that reinsurance would kick in at 400, and then the claims would only go like to 410. So by raising the reinsurance rate to 450,000, it decreased the premium rate, and they felt that that was a good exchange. The one item to note, Jim brought up having Juneteenth as a holiday, which led to discussion. Currently, the Prime West employees already have 11 paid holidays in the year. And so from a business standpoint, many commissioners felt that adding another holiday was unnecessary. The option was given, you can do Juneteenth, but then take away one of the other holidays. That didn't go anywhere either, so the vote was yes, 7 approved to do the holiday and 14 voted no. I voted no. And so discussion led that Jim can make note of this on the website. It would not be a paid holiday. And then also last Thursday, there was a 42-page brief that was presented from the legal team for Prime West in the lawsuit of DHS. And they have until June 23rd to respond. And that's it.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Mojave agenda here, because I wasn't gonna say anything about it, but,
I had to leave early, so.
okay. I think, let's see, the closing on Beds Plus, that's supposed to be, I think, tomorrow perhaps. Yeah, and that's where their Head Start program is gonna be. It's a very nice location, right next to the other one. And I don't believe there was any problems as far as, because there was a contingency upon the new owner being able to get a loan to get another location, and that contingency is passed, and so she didn't mention anything about any problems with that. They did have their audit presentation at the meeting, and that looked really good.
Oh, yeah, that was the first year they'd ever gotten a clean audit.
Yeah, it was a really clean audit. I mean,
And-
there's always some kind of small discrepancy they have to correct, but it was good. Well, they had a discussion on tiny homes. as
Oh, yeah,
maybe a
that's when I had
possi-
to leave, okay.
As a possible solution to homelessness. I don't think that any decision's been made on it, they're just looking into it.
Okay.
It would've been better than tents, though, as long as,
Did they speak about the philanthropists in Austin and what they're doing down there with the homeless, with the tiny homes?
no,
in the community? Just kind of search that. It's
okay,
kind of
in
interesting.
Austin, Texas?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to look that up.
Where is it at?
it's in Austin, Texas, and
Okay.
they've done a tiny home community, and then the homeless are there, but they have to be part of that community and actually, work in the wood shop where they make a product that they sell to the public or whatever. Everybody's got a job function to do in there,
Oh,
and they each have their little place, and it seems to be working quite well.
I think tiny homes would work better down there than here, because you
Right,
gotta take up a
right.
lot of space with insulation and
Yep.
heating and things like that
Right.
up here.
but then they're learning healthy behavior along
Healthy
with
behavior, how
housing.
to belong in a community,
Yeah.
and, service above self a little bit, so
Okay. That's all from Mojave, and then I was gonna go and just say a couple quick things. One about Kitchigami Library, Regional Library, is that we've been having our negotiations, labor negotiations, and that was the week before last. It took all day long, and even didn't have lunch that day. But we still haven't reached an agreement yet. We've got a few things that we're stuck on. So hopefully we can get it the next time. Since it's all not settled yet, I don't want to get any details, so we'll just leave it at that.
Are all employees union?
Just about. In fact, well, I don't want to get into details. Right now, there's 35 employees, so it's a fair number.
How many employees are there total?
Well, 35 almost takes all of them, not
So
all.
would it just
but-
be the supervisor probably that is?
Oh, no, it's all employees.
Okay.
And,
Good.
yeah, they're wanting to get certain hours too. And then the other one I had was, the Parks Board, their next meeting is gonna be at the Deep Lake property, so that each of those board members can get familiar with it, because, ultimately, the responsibility of maintaining it, mowing the grass and things like that is gonna fall on the Parks Board, so they all need to become familiar with it. If any commissioner hadn't been there yet, maybe that's a good time to go.
I was just gonna ask.
When is the meeting?
They're gonna meet up there at 7:00, the fourth Monday of the month.
7 at night on the
Yeah.
27th?
Yes. I think they're gonna be meeting here at 6. And, I won't be there because we've got a long planning commission meeting, and that includes Starlight Bay.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be at that one. So, yeah, if any commissioner wants to fill in
Yeah.
for me,
I
that would be great.
don't know if you've got an alternate for park boards?
I don't think so.
Okay, otherwise,
Nope.
I know a couple of us could go, so I would be interested in going.
Okay. I'll let Chip know about that.
Okay, cool, thank you.
That's it.
David?
Well, the Fair Board's been busy planning for the fair, and they're kind of excited to have a normal fair. No COVID interfering and things like that. You all should have received an email from Connie Carmichael on Senior Day.
Yes.
Yeah, so I plan on being at the fair. I gotta do some judging that morning anyhow, so I'll probably attend for sure,
Yeah.
but,
I haven't let her know yet, but I'm gonna go. Sure.
yeah.
I'll try to be there, Dave, right in town.
So whoever wants to be there, you know, I don't know if you can make it or not, but if you can't, have Tom maybe speak.
Yep.
Mhm.
Give you the first
Yep.
chance.
And that's on the 15th, as I recall?
Yeah, it's that Friday, the 15th, yep.
I got a question mark there, so. I'll try.
Okay.
It's easy.
I'll know more closer to the date.
Yeah, one of you two should head up the
I'll let Carl Markle
speaking, yeah.
know that, Ted gets first chance. If he doesn't want to do it, then I'll do it.
Yep, sounds good. Let's see, so the planning's going well. Looks like it'll be a good fair, so I'm pretty excited about that. Regarding Heritage, the cottages are full, so that's one positive. And that's been, they seem to be doing well there. Heritage Living Center still struggling with about the same amount of occupancy. Manor will be sharing some staffing with Heritage, which will help the staffing issues at the Manor a little bit. So that'll be a little bit helpful. That's a change they're making. But still overall, it's really difficult to get staffing. They are having some success with getting CNAs, and they did have some success at the job fair. But the nurses are getting the RNs is where the big struggle is, and when you still have to use the nursing pool, it's 3 times more expensive, and that is not helping our cause any, but they keep fighting the fight and keep working the numbers the best they can, trying to make it work and get it back to the point where we can start accepting some more residents. And that's pretty much a list of what I got, unless there are questions on any of that.
Okay. Let's see, Dan already touched on Northwest Minnesota Juvenile Center. I had Dancing Sky Area Agency on Aging. That's of course with the Older Americans Act. One of the things they're looking at is the senior meals. Some of those are delivered, and some of them are also congregate, where they eat together. And the delivery meals, of course, they can get up, I believe it was up to 5 meals each delivery. They're trying to get additional dollars for that. The funding for that program has been flat for years, and obviously with everything going up, if the money stays the same, then they can provide less. Let's see, of course, it's also the budget time where we start talking about budgets and everything. They had a group speak about legal services of Northwest Minnesota. They have several vans, this is throughout the state actually, where it's actually attorneys are in the vans. They've got the fax machines and the internet access and secretarial services and all that, so they'll come to an area, whether it's Bemidji, even Park Rapids if we request it, where they'll come to the senior centers and stuff like that and help people with whatever they may need legal service for. And a lot of times it might just be a referral, but it's a service that they spoke about, that part of the Older Americans Act is paying for. Let's see, senior linkage line, of course, there was a lot of, had a presentation on that. And also on the Older American Act, they were talking about some new software that's available for people to fill out the forms. And one of the parts that they liked about it was if you were missing something, they wouldn't let you continue the form until you had that part filled out also. Let's see, also had an HRDC meeting. We welcomed Bobby Wasika, an Akeley City Council member. She joined in person that night, and so did Theora. Let's see, there again, started talking about the budget discussions. Applying for another Minnesota Department of Transportation planning grant. And Craig Gosvick, Beltrami County Commissioner, and myself were the only two people who put their hats in the ring to be part of the executive committee on the HRDC board, and they're talking about expanding it to 6 people from 4 to 6. So it sounds like the vote will be taken on our July annual meeting. So I feel pretty good about that, the chances there. Let's see, also had a Minnesota Rural Counties meeting on the 23rd, which was a short one because they wanted to talk about the achievements of the state legislature, which was basically broadband and, was it,
Well, it was Hero Pay.
Hero Pay, and then some of the wetland for roads, and that was about it. So it was a short meeting. And let's see, and of course the managers meeting, we discussed MCIT, their coverage, kind of explained. It was quite a few areas. I didn't realize it was so in depth, how everything is covered. And the number of people on staff that actually collect the data for MCIT and that. And I guess that's all I've got. If they get any questions.
I've got 2 things. One is when you brought up the legislature, just to remind that the one thing that did not pass was the $1 billion for nursing home, group homes, and HHS programs. And then, Dave, I actually Googled the Austin tiny home, and it's very interesting. I would encourage you to look there. Interesting, there's no government funding.
Oh.
So they can run it without strings, and it's been very successful. Their retention rate is at 86%.
It's getting people to go to work.
Well, it's a lot of, the person that designed this said that the thing missing in people's lives is family. And so they have a group of people around them that care.
Yeah.
And so they come into the village. Dave, you read more about this than I have, and then they work in the village, and they get support from each other, but there's also accountability.
Yeah.
That's what I like about that drop-in center, LAC drop-in center, because they all come together, they're building relations with each other, and they really do support each other very well.
Who's the philanthropist that started it again?
Draper. We put in 18 million, and then they currently have 6 million with private donations to run it. He says, no, it must be Graham. What we say is we built a 250-bedroom, $18 million mansion.
I know he's been on national media a few times with it.
That might be a good thing to work on for workforce housing.
Yeah, I'm gonna look
We
into
should
this.
look
Thank
into
you,
that,
Dave. This
yeah.
is really interesting. Yeah, let's see,
Questions?
Alan Graham, founder, community first founder and CEO of its Christian-based parent organization, Mobile Loaves and Fishes.
We could put that on the north end of the county. No, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't
Be
have
interesting if
family,
you
if you can have a sense of
Scale it
community.
down.
Well, it would help with some of the housing needs as well. I mean, people are more transit and moving around, and
And Austin, I didn't realize this, is comparable to San Francisco for homelessness. And so that's how all this started.
The struggle, like I say, is I don't know if you could scale it small enough to make it practical.
Well,
Other
I'm at a
areas.
good point here in we have winters.
Yeah.
That makes it challenging.
We need maybe a little bit bigger of a home than some
Well,
of
we
these
can
tiny
look,
homes. Yeah,
it's
there's probably
certainly
different
something to
sizes.
start
Yeah,
talking about. I'm
for
gonna
sure.
forward it on to Mary and,
Yeah, very
Well,
good.
it's good to see
Now,
too
you
that,
can have outdoor living space to be.
yes,
expanded.
yeah.
it's good to see too that private individuals are funding something like this, because government can't do everything. I mean,
Yeah.
Usually the more government involvement there is, the slower and the more reactive it is.
Ain't that the truth?
Government takes time. Alrighty. Meetings of note.
We talked about the schedule for the County Board of Appeal and Equalization next week. A reminder that we do not have a work session on Tuesday, the 14th, and that we will be, the AMC regional meeting is at Beltrami County on Wednesday, the 15th.
Alrighty.
5 o'clock, right? 5?
It's 6, for Monday, it's 6.
Monday at 6 and the rest of the
Yeah.
nights is 5, and then,
Monday's at 6:30, I believe.
is it 6:30?
Because remember, you have to have one meeting that lasts
Oh, it is
to at
6:30,
least 7
yeah.
o'clock. So last year, we started at 6 and we had
Yeah.
nothing to do by 7. So this year, we started at 6:30 to avoid that problem, and we're not gonna have a problem being here past 7.
With that, do we need to start at 5 or 6 anyhow?
The notice, that's the notice that was printed in everybody's valuation statement. There's really no way to start before that. I will have the doors open a half an hour before. We will not have the sign-out sheets until 20 minutes before the meeting, so to try to make it fair to people.
Okay.
This?
With the small home.
Oh, hey, this is
I
really
changed it to
interesting.
6:30, so you're absolutely certain.
You can put it up there.
What does your valuation statement say?
Contract.
I don't know. I'm just looking at what my calendar says. Mine said 6. Not anymore, though.
It's in my file at home.
Well,
Yeah.
even if you come early, it's better than one time last year. Dan called me, because I totally forgot about an evening meeting, I don't remember what it was, but
Jonathan, did you have anything?
And then Ted, I'll be up there on Wednesday with you. I wouldn't want you to be the lone commissioner.
Wednesday.
I thought we were gonna be done then too.
Oh, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
That's right, today's Tuesday.
I'm gonna bring the motorhome up that way.
Guess the last thing we need is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Dan,
I'll second.
thank you, Shar. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.